Hi everyone, Grainger-Barras here from Hawthorn Football Club. Just had a really good chat with the boys from Where Do We Begin podcast, talking grand final, all things life and all things footy, so go give it a listen.
Now, Lockie, I'm going to mix it up a bit. I'm going to start this interview with a question for you. Is that okay?
Look, it's all right, mate. You haven't given me too much notice, so let's crack in.
Okay, how many days do you reckon it is since we spoke to Denver Grainger-Barras?
I don't know, but probably about 200 too many. I wish I spoke to him sooner.
Exactly, 205 days. And I'll tell you, I've been marking those days down in my calendar ever since we last spoke. And the moment has finally come. The season's over for Denver. And that means he's right back here where he belongs on the Where Do We Begin podcast. It's great to have him back on. Thanks very much for joining us again, mate.
No, my pleasure, guys. It's good to be back. Like you said, 205 days. That sounds like 204 too many, so good to be back.
Oh, mate, it's absolutely beautiful. We nearly didn't invite you back after seeing your beautiful snaps over in WA, making the rest of us Melbourneites jealous. You escaped. I want to know how you did it. Did you dig a tunnel underneath? How did you get out of here?
I got on we finished up on a Tuesday and I got on the first flight out. I flew out Tuesday night, so we wrapped up at about 12 with our meetings, and straight away I saw what's next flight. It was Tuesday night. I checked with the club, make sure that was okay, because there was word going around that they were going to shut the borders, like hard shut, between WA and Vic as soon as that Friday. So I said I wasn't going to worry about too much. I was just going to pack a suitcase and try and get out. And luckily enough, I did. So I came back to the old stomping ground in High Wycombe in WA, and I did my 2 weeks quarantine and hated every second of it. But now I'm pretty glad I did it.
Yeah, like lots of athletes around Australia have had to do quarantine, but not too many footy players have had to do that kind of interstate quarantine because of all the bubbles. So what did you do with yourself for those 2 weeks?
Yeah, I sort of did I want to say it was very productive, but I'd be completely lying to you. I think for the first 12 days I played video games the whole time. And then day 13, I sort of sat down and started looking at some future pathways in terms of uni or a certificate, or like just sort of seeing what that sort of looked like, see if anything sparked the interest. And then, on day 13, I hit a wall. So lucky I only had one more day after that point. But then day 14 was pretty much spent pacing the walls until they'd let me out. And then they did, and I went and got ice cream. And that was my quarantine.
Jeez, that sounds fun. And look, we could be speaking to you all days about all the amount of fun that I'm sure you're getting up to in WA, but let's get back on track. Let's talk about footy. So, first AFL season, so 205 days ago, whatever it was, we spoke to you in the pre-season. Now you've completed your AFL season. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's a different thing, AFL footy. So I thought playing league footy back here against bigger, middle-aged men, a lot of ex-AFL players. I thought that'd give me a nice and easy sort of transition into it, but little did I know that there were younger blokes who hit a lot harder at AFL level. So, just come over and sort of get taught that lesson pretty quick. It was pretty good. I had a knee injury, which sucked early in the year, but like the AFL program, the professionalism is something that, you'll always be mesmerised by. So to come into that sort of environment is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, mate, I can imagine that would just be so awesome. And how have you has your kind of idea of what you want to be as a player, has that evolved throughout the last 6 months or so?
Oh yeah, a little bit, definitely. I think if you'd asked me last year, I'd talk highly about how much I want to have an intercept, how much I want to have an impact in the air and intercept, and like none of that's really changed, but the element of like just being defensively stable and knowing that my teammates can rely on me, and knowing that they'll trust me to do the right thing with ball in hand or without it. So that sort of element of my games, like I've held that to a higher regard this year, and I think that's something I'll continue with. So it's sort of gone away from a little bit more less personal now to more of a team orientated goal, which I've always been team orientated, but I reckon more so now.
Yeah, geez, you've really got the footy media mantra all about the boys, which we love, Denver. But look, we'll talk a bit about team later. We'll go back to the personal, and I'm not much of a stats fan, but I think something that really did impress me in that from the games that you've played this year, that you ranked elite for tackles, averaging over 2 tackles a game, although you did get 6 in one game, which is impressive. 4 spoils and 1.8 intercept marks. So you got that intercept marks game down pat. But I think what's really impressive is, like you said, your defensive craft, which is probably one of the harder things to get straight into when you step up to the big leagues.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's something I've actually, to be honest with you guys, like I've never ever been any good at is tackling, because like to be honest, I'm just like I don't need to tackle if I mark it. Like that was always like my little mantra. Like if I just mark it or I just grab it, like or I have the footy, then I don't need to lay tackles. But you sort of learn, especially going to the AFL system. Sometimes you can't mark everything. So. And I was sort of struggling, especially after my debut, to sort of find my way into games. So I thought, what's the best way to do this? It used to be just try and run into someone and find a body. And that sort of evolved this year into laying tackles and having a bit more of an impact that way. So, yeah, I think that was against Brisbane. I had the 6. And it still wasn't a game where I think McStay kicked 4 on me just quietly. Like it wasn't one of my better games. But, yeah, I had 6 tackles and sort of saw a different side of the game then and tried to improve on it from there.
Yeah, perfect, mate. And we've decided to integrate some bit of social questions from some of our audience into this class of 2020, the second installment of each one. So we've got one kind of on this from Jacob Maynard on Twitter. In the long run, do you see yourself as a Stephen May or Jake Lever? In other words, will you be a lockdown fullback or more of an intercepting defender in the Sicily mould?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I don't know. It's a really good question. I remember before I got drafted, my I guess you sort of say mantra was that I wanted to be a Dylan Grimes with Alex Rant's capabilities. So, the ability to read the ball and just mark it. So Jake Lever, very similar. Just go and get it and just have your team trust you that when they kick long, you're going to be there to mark it or impact. Whilst also having that Alex Rant's type who you plonk him on your biggest forward, your Buddy Franklin's, your Ben Browns, and just like trust that they'll do the job there as well. So I think finding a balance between those two. So I want to have the team's trust and the coach's trust to go play on the most influential opposition player, but at the same time have the ability to still play my game, which will help the team. So finding that balance is something I want to develop.
Oh, mate, and if that happens, you are going to be a very, very exciting prospect, if you're not already, for Hawks fans and footy fans in general, I guess. Great player to watch already. Bigger and better things to come, we hope and we imagine, but kind of just on positions again, I was having a look through the VFL stats for the one VFL game you played this year against Essendon, and it said you played on the half-forward flank against Essendon. Is that inaccurate?
No, I think.
Okay.
I think Box Hill. One of two things happens here. It's every week. One of two things happens. One is that the people who put the social media post up, don't know the players, or they have no clue what positions they're playing in, or 2, it's a strategy to try and confuse the opposition where they put players in all different sorts of positions. So, no, I never lined up the half-forward flank. You would have seen probably 5 or 6 to my name if I did, but no, I was playing from fullback the whole day.
Jeez, I hope the Box Hill social media team aren't listening, because there's absolutely
I'll just bag them. No, we'll say it was a strategy. It was smart by them.
I like it. And so, as we've established, you're back over in WA. What was it like being back in Victoria, especially like you said, you were super close with your partner, you got your whole family back home. Did you get homesick and all, and was it really difficult, particularly with the state lockdowns?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think I remember I've spoken about it quite a bit this year, and the more I've sort of spoken about it, the more I've understood it. And I've always maintained that I believe it's like my partner Abby. I believe it's harder. It was a lot harder on her this year. I left into this world. I joined a new family, a new football club. I had all these things going for me. Just so much change, so much excitement. The days went so quick, whereas I sort of left, I don't want to say left her, but she was stuck back here in WA with everything that was the same. So, I was keeping busy. I had so much things to keep my mind going. So I didn't really stop to think about it too much. I think I did that deliberately, sort of shying away from the fact because I'm a big family man. But, the Melbourne life's pretty hectic, so it keeps you on your toes. So I didn't really have much time to stop and think about it, which is a blessing in its own way.
Yeah, do you reckon... I think having a look at your Instagram, like throughout the season, your family visited you like once, but was it just that it? You saw them once and cut there?
I was really lucky. Just for some reason, Mum had a weekend off, and I think it was when did they came to a game? Was it the G? I can't remember, but I got mum, the sister, and my girlfriend actually surprised me. So they came for the Saturday and the Sunday, just popped over really quickly, got them flights. First flight I found, and they ended up surprising me, and Abby, my partner, came over as well. So it was a really, really good thing to have the whole group together. But it was only a couple of days, which was really good, but I wanted to try and show them everything, show them a bit of Melbourne, my family, the footy, the club, and it just got a bit jam-packed. But it was really, really good to see them, and that eventually was the only 2 days I'd seen them for the year. So bit of a crazy one, but I'm home now, so oh well.
Yeah, beautiful, mate, beautiful. And that sounds like a really positive memory and a great weekend. And I think now we might reflect on something that's probably a bit less positive. So from what I've spoken from you, I think there's one thing that I can take away is that you're an absolute competitive beast. And I can only imagine, mate, was it tough, like round one pre-season not being selected? I know that you're a team man, like you said, but seeing that other players that were drafted after you debuting, I can just imagine how frustrating that was.
Oh mate, absolutely. I'm a super, like exactly like you said, super competitive, and it's just like I see people like CJ flourishing, and it's so good for the team, but it frustrates me in the same sense. Like I'm so competitive, and I want that to be me, to having that impact, even though it's great for him to be doing it for the team. I think that's sort of one of my like motivating factors. It's why I've sort of pushed myself so hard over the years, because there's always been someone better. There's always been someone doing what I want to be doing. So, you've always got something to strive for. So yeah, round one came. I know my goal early on was to play round one, and Hawks. They finished up the year previously pretty low down. I think they were 15th or something. So the high draft pick should slot straight in sort of talk. I guess it sort of got to me a little bit. Pre-season came round, and I mean, I've never been the fittest character ever, but like I wasn't up to standard, AFL standard, and I had a few practice matches for the season and played okay in some and average in others. So yeah, that's sort of the inconsistency that you don't really want, because your teammates can't trust you. And I sort of understood when round one came that I wasn't going to be in the team, but yeah, like you said, my competitive nature sort of made me fight back and try and fight my way into the team. And I think it was 2 weeks later or something, I did my knee sadly, but yeah, I've always been that way. I've always been competitive. Super, super intense that way.
Wow, mate, thanks so much for your honesty. I think
that's right.
Like, geez, yeah, I can imagine how tough it was, and it really gives a great insight into not only you as a person, but I guess what you went through at the time, didn't it, Harps?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Couldn't be more right about that. And talking about that knee injury, hyperextension, you got back and played games, hardly basically bypassed the VFL, just straight into the team, played one game in the VFL and then straight into it. But I saw some things on some socials. I don't know how true these are, but they were saying there were fears that you were going to be out for the season. Any truth in that? Yeah, well, it's one of those weird ones. Well, when I first did it, it's probably one of the worst pains I've ever felt. I remember, like, I'm one that, like, I like to think I'm pretty tough. So, like, I've had some pretty bad injuries. I broke my wrist playing footy. And I remember when I did that, I just sort of smiled and laughed and walked off. And I sort of, I've never had an injury bad enough where I've actually, like, screamed. I remember the Richmond thing, I screamed. I threw my mouth guard. I was in so much pain. And then I settled down. It's the initial pain sort of fell away, and I ended up jogging off. But yeah, straight away concerned of ACL with the thing. They did a little test and they said no, it should be fine. But the pain I was feeling, I knew it was pretty serious, and I thought there was PCL damage, and it ended up being a little bit of PCL damage. But the PCL, which goes across your knee, had a slight tear in it, and if that wasn't as strong as it was in that situation, it was Coleman Jones for Richmond who landed on it. If my PCL had broken, apparently my leg would have folded in half. So yeah, it would have been a whole season. So I was quite literally a couple of centimeters off missing a whole year, and probably still being in rehab. So there's a lot of uncertainty back then. So I can understand the confusion.
Yeah, geez. I mean, I can only imagine what your first few weeks of AFL was like. I mean, you're away from home, you miss out on round one, which you'd set that goal, and then 2 weeks later, injured. I mean, how did you deal with all that?
Oh, I remember I still stand by one of the best things that ever happened to me was when I did my shoulder, my debut game from the League Swan District Waffle. I was 16 and I'd just come off under 18s. I was playing up. And so my bottom age year, I just played against the Victoria. I played on Cody Waitman actually. Played really well. We won that game, and I was sort of off and flying, and then playing my league debut. And, I did my shoulder, and that slowed me down. And at the time, it sucked because I was like, really boosting my draft stock. But yeah, the rehab then gave me the ability to sort of stop and reevaluate, and that's exactly what I did when I did my knee. I sort of stopped, reevaluated, found the silver linings, and that was the ability to get my weight up, get some strength up, learn the way of AFL rehab, and sort of took it day by day, and I got through it.
What were these silver linings that you found?
Oh, well, one was putting on weight. I put on 4 kilos whilst in rehab. I ended up losing it all when I came back, I'll be honest. That's just like the load that running does. But so I had 4 kilos, and I put on, I think it was 7.5 kilos, increase in my bench press. So I went up to just over 90 my bench press. When I was back home, I could barely bench 70. I don't think I've ever put 70 on the bar. So that was a little silver lining. But I was with Will Day at the time. He just when he did his ankle, he did his ankle the same day I did my knee. And like I said earlier, with the competitiveness, like he's very similar. So, I reckon I don't think my bench press would have got as high as it was if it wasn't him pushing behind me. So, so like I said, credit to him, but it's something we worked on together.
Geez, I just put weight onto the barge. I finally got up to 30 kegs, and now you just absolutely... I wished I could get up to 70, Denver, mate. Putting us all to shame. But but it's, and like Harv's touched on, so you've done your rehab, and so you come back in it for your VFL comeback game. And I remember Twitter that day, because obviously we're taking close attention. I think one of the tweets that came out was like, "That's your last ever game in the twos, Denver." I saw a few Hawks people, so you obviously you impressed.
I remember that. I remember it came back. It was a fun game. It was actually because I ended up playing 4 VFL games before I did my knee. Sorry, VFL scratches. And then you got to Essendon, run out, you beauty, played, you beauty, played okay, split my head open, you beauty, won the game, you beauty, and all of a sudden they get pushed into the middle. I just had absolutely no clue what was going on. And then I realised that it was actually my VFL debut that came like 14 weeks into the season, even though I'd already played what felt like 6 games of VFL. So, I got pushed into the circle, got my Gatorade shower, and off I went.
Now, from the VFL debut to the AFL debut, and before we kind of talk about your experience of it, I just want to found a bit of a kind of strange comparison that I found. So I read something that you were the first top 10 pick for Hawthorn since 2006. I had a look who that top 10 pick was. He was pick number 6, like you, a guy called Mitch Thorpe, 194 centimetres, you're 195 centimetres. You both debuted in round 15 wins at the MCG, where the Hawks were down at quarter time. Both had 4 kicks, and unfortunately, we might get onto this later, but you both missed the next week with injury.
That's uncanny. That is uncanny.
I was just digging deeper and deeper, and the similarities were just falling before me. Mitch Thorpe, probably a bit disappointed with how his AFL career ended up, but hopefully big things to come from you, my friend. Let's talk about your debut, though, against the Giants in what was a good upset win at the time for the Hawks. But let's talk about let's be selfish. You be selfish for a minute here. Talk about yourself. How was your experience of that game? Were you nervous?
No, actually, it was really, really weird. It was one of the debut. Everyone talks it up. You got to get nervous, and I remember just saying like, nah. Playing on Saturday, life goes on, kind of thing. And I remember like Tom Mitchell came up to me and was like, "Oh yeah, how nervous are you?" "Oh yeah." And when I told him I wasn't, he like looked at me like almost with a level of like disgust. Like, this is your debut, mate. You should be shitting yourself. But I don't know why. I think I just sort of I talk about it quite a bit, going back to like my process and like just treat it like another game, like a VFL game, and I find the games where I get really nervous, I overthink too much. So I tried to just stay busy in the mind. But yeah, I mean, I remember when I got to the game. That's I think when it kicked in, and it finally I understood that I was debuting. And that's when I think a little bit of the nerves kicked in. I went to the toilet a few times, probably 5 or 6 times before we actually went out. So yeah, I guess you could say there was a little bit of nerves, but in the lead up, not really.
Right, awesome. And so you've got out there, you've got a crowd, and I remember I got a couple of messages from my Hawthorn mates because they've seen that you're on the podcast. Like, they loved you from the straight. You showed so much fire out on that field for your first game.
Yeah.
You're pretty fearless.
Yeah, I don't know why. I like to play like that. That's me at my ideal level. I just took it to another level. Yeah, almost to a bad. Like I remember, I like on the wing, I punched Callum Ward in the head by accident. I was spoiling, and I split him open. And that was I was excited about the match here, and I worried I was going to lose it in a fine because I punched him in the face. I was just played with that element of aggression. I sort of dwindled away a little bit later in the year, sort of focused on the team a little bit more. But yeah, I remember early on we were struggling a little bit, so I just sort of, I don't want to say took it on myself, but I just sort of thought, what's similar what I was speaking about earlier, how can I bring myself into this? And I thought the best way to do that was to get into Finlayson and get into Himmelberg, try and just become a little pest. And I think it worked. I think it worked out.
That's interesting. So you said that you like to get aggressive on the field, and it's polar opposite to now, which is just such a good, such a nice guy, so calm, chill. Is it hard? Do you find it hard to get into that mindset, or because you're such a competitive person, once you're on the field, it's white line, it's go time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember I used to play against. I'm saying true. Went to the Eagles, especially him actually. But when I would come in community footy or whenever I'd come against the state boys at Swan Districts to Waffle, I'd get I'd almost I'd take it out, I'd make it worse for them in a way. I don't know, I just cross the line and they come up and try and shake your hand and it'd be a stiff arm, don't touch me. I probably took it a little bit too far back then, but I don't know why I always cross the line. I've always never ever been someone to make it personal. I'll never ever chirp you about something in your personal life. I'll only ever go at you for your footy, the day. If you mess up a kick, I'll make sure you know about it, sort of thing. And that's sort of my little mantra. So, and then as soon as the siren goes, me and you could have had a brawl, and you could have punched me in the face fair and square. The siren goes, I'll walk over and give you a big hug. And great game, love the way you played. That's always in my sort of way. I've sort of held on to that since juniors.
Oh, mate, yeah, just from the kind of spectator view and talking to you, we wouldn't have it any other way. It's so good to see. Bit of fire on your belly, but so cool, calm and collected off the field. One more little thing about the game, though. We talk about the courage and the first touch. I think it was your first touch of the ball. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was you spoiled it and it went about 5 meters forward, and then you ended up marking it. I don't think I've ever seen that kind of thing before. It was your first touch.
Absolute Luke. There's a video. There's a picture of it. I'll send it to you, and it's a picture of me, and I'm sort of punching it like that. And then if you look at me, I'm like this. Got no clue what I'm doing. It was Ward coming back, I think. And I just threw an arm at it, and for somehow it sort of rolled up my arm and then landed in my lap. And then I pulled back, and I was like, okay, I can look for an inside kick, but I'll probably mess it up. So I was like, I'll just go long. I'll just do the safe thing here and try and kick it out of bounds. And that was my first disposal. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so not every first game can end in a fairy tale, but yours did. You got the win, mate, against a team that ended on to making the semi-final. That must have been so special.
Yeah, it was. It was really it was one of those games where, no game in my eyes is ever out of your reach, but it was one of those games where it's okay, we've been playing average. What can we do here to try and make sure we get over the line? And the way we started off the first quarter, I was a bit nervous. Everyone wants to play their first game and win. I was a bit nervous, and then I ended up getting concussed in the third quarter, so I don't remember any of the third quarter, but I remember coming out onto the bench at the fourth and looking and seeing we're up by 20 points. And yeah, I remember I didn't want to cheer and dance. I wanted to cheer and dance, but I knew I couldn't. But yeah, to know that we were getting the win in my first game was a pretty surreal feeling.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Did it sour it, getting concussed on debut? And do you have much concussion history, or you got the win? You couldn't really...
Yeah, it's a hard one, concussion. It's not something you really want to talk about too much because, there's all these protocols nowadays and, if you say how many you've had, but I've had a fair few, but none of which have been to probably the extent that I had in my debut. And weirdly enough, like I've had a lot worse knocks. Like I've been flattened way harder, but just for some reason, the motion. I was in a Finlayson tackle. No one probably even knows where the incident came from. I was in a Finlayson tackle, and he sort of fell over his shoulder. He had my arms, and I think I just went headfirst in the ground. I just had a whopping headache. And yeah, that's the last thing I remember until I woke up in the doctor's office just after 3/4 time. So I remember watching the vision and seeing like me spoil the ball over the line in the third quarter. And just thinking, like, how was I running out there? Like, I had no clue what I was doing. So it sucked because the following week was Sean Bergen's 400th, and I've got a good relationship with Silk. So I call him Butter because I personally think he's soft. Yeah, I was spewing. So he started calling me. Yeah, he started calling me Princess because I wasn't going to play with him in his 400. So I was spewing, but that's all right.
Have you been given a nickname yourself yet?
I've got a few floating around. I get DGB is pretty stock standard. Shaggy hangs around with a few. Liam Shields and Silk call me, they call me Princess. And I also get Denver's just for some reason. In pre-season, everyone's name had an S after it, so mine was Denver's, and it stuck.
Okay, fair enough, I guess. But if anyone wants to kind of search Denver Grainger-Barras on Twitter, and you have a look through the latest tweets featuring those terms, and you get a bit. But then June 27, the day of your debut, there's an absolute explosion when you're going backwards in time. So many people tweeting, this guy's like a lock for the team for the next 15 years. This guy like 10-time All-Australian, lock it in. You're a pretty confident guy yourself. You've spoken about like wanting to be best defender, best player in the league, even. And we all hope you can do that, and really want you to do that. But do you feel pressure at all from, I guess, your own confidence and the media spotlights that's been thrust upon you, maybe because of your confidence and just because of your skill?
Yeah, I think, it's not a really good question. Like, it's something that you sort of have two ways to take it. You take it head on and try and overcome it and just be the best person you can be, or you can sort of wilter away from it. But I've always said that the biggest judge for me personally has been myself. Like I sort of spoke about earlier, like no matter how hard I work, like I always think like you could have worked harder, you could have run 5 seconds faster, sort of thing. So I've always been my own biggest competitor, and I think that's sort of like I've always loved the element of outside noise pushing me on or doubting me. Like, you sort of take, I don't know what the word is, but you just sort of, you take it on board and you sort of try to use it as fuel. But yeah, it's just sort of, I've never, like, people, like, I see it all the time, future captain and all that sort of stuff. And I always love the support, but yeah, I just focus day by day and try and stick to my process and make sure I can push myself to be the best I can be. Because in the end, like, no matter how much outside noise there is, if you don't want to do the work, you're not going to do the work. So, yeah, it's right. In my head, it's pretty simple. Just push myself and try and get there.
Jeez, that's almost the perfect answer, Hart. That's almost the perfect answer from you, Denver. You played that very well with a straight bat. I'll tell you what, you should be opening in the Ashes this year, mate. With that, how you get on the front foot. I like it there. But all right, so you play another 4 games. You missed Silk's 400th. He was a bit harsh on you, I thought, calling you Princess. But look, we'll keep moving on. Play another 4 games. Have a draw against Melbourne, beat Brisbane. You must have been pretty happy with how the team was going with you in the side and just loving playing league footy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I sort of felt week by week, I sort of started to, well, funnily, after the GWS, I felt really comfortable, felt like I could really find my way in the team, find my feet, play my game, help the team. And the Melbourne game, it was a bit different. I played a bit smaller and I was a bit more trying to get used to it, and it was a good draw. It was one of our good mates with Christian Petrarca, and to draw against him it was a feeling, because it was one of those, again, like I said earlier, no game should ever feel like it's out of your reach. But I mean, they were playing such good footy, and to come up against them when they were firing the way they were and draw, in my eyes, it was a win. You can put that on the record. I had 2 wins to start the season. No, it was, really, really good. Absolutely.
So on Petrarca, just quickly, do you think he's the best player that you came up against this year?
I think, I don't know. I know he's highly rated. I just think he's underrated. Even he's so highly rated, I still believe he's underrated. Like if you like in that Melbourne game, I wish they turned the crowd noise and the commentators down for a while. You just hear he knows where the footy's going before it's been kicked, before someone's dealt with it. Sometimes there'll be if he could step 10 metres to try and tackle someone, he would just he'll start running the other way because he knows he's not going to get there in time. He's going to get to the next contest. And I remember I tried to tackle him once, and like I said, I'm not the best tackler, but I went to tackle him, and it was I could not. There was absolutely nothing I could have done to stop him. His core strength is so strong, and I reckon he'll stay like that. I reckon he'll be as good as he is now, if not better, for the next 4 to 5 years. Genuinely, I think he's a star. Don't tell him I said that. He's got a big head already.
And we're recording this before the grand final, so you're going to be able to watch him in person.
I can't
48
wait.
hours from now. It should be very, very exciting. But I'm going to give you 2 listener questions. Go bang bang. Quick one first from Brett Lear on Facebook. Who's your biggest help or support at the club?
Or biggest help? We got what they call a player development manager, which is Josh. And he's a little ginger, and everyone calls him my dad. He's easily my best friend at the club, probably.
Okay. And the next one is on Twitter from Sean. He's got 2. You can answer the first one quickly, and then the second one maybe might be a bit of a story here.
Sean's lucky day.
Yeah, indeed. First one, funniest bloke at the club. And second one, a favourite or funny story that occurred over this year.
Funniest bloke at the club, easily me. There's no question about it. If you ask anyone at the club, they'll say exactly the same thing. Nah.
I love that Denver's modest with the football questions, but when it comes to sense of humour, he's straight into it.
He's literally got the crickets in the background, so I don't know what that says about his sense of humour.
Oh, you're not wrong. I didn't think you guys would be able to hear them. I can hear them. They're making me feel pretty poor. Honestly, CJ is one of those people, he just walks into a room and you're either laughing at him or you're laughing with him. He's so funny. And funny story, I would have to say, is at the end of the year, just before lockdown got really serious, we did a little COVID Olympics just for the younger boys, so all the 1st to 4 years. And we had 2 kids. I was one of the team's captains, and we ended up winning. We knew we were going to win. That was no worries there. But we all got dressed up, and we dressed up in suits, and we did footy, golf, and handball games and things like that. It was really good. And the loser had to be the other person's servant for the day. And I picked Jacob Kaczynski, and I made him get me 3 coffees, and I only drank one of them. I I handed the other 2 out and was just abusing him all day. That was probably one of the highlights of the year. It was so funny.
Yeah, okay, mate. That sounds quite funny. Bit harsh on the poor man, mate. Coffee doesn't grow on trees, mate. You've stitched him up there. You've stitched him up mightily.
I made him run a tab down at the local.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. And now moving on, so Harper brought it up before, so grand final in a couple of days' time. Now, I'm not going to ask you how much Hawks would win by, because as we established, you beat Melbourne. It wasn't a draw, you beat them, and you obviously beat Doggies in round 22. So if you were in grand final day, you'd be premiership player Norm Smith-Handlers. But anyway, we'll move on. Yeah. Prediction though, who's winning out of North? Who's winning out of Bulldogs and Melbourne?
I know. I personally, I'm going for Melbourne. I've got Luke Jackson, who played with Vid State, and Trent Rivers as well. Plays at ends with them, so for them to win a flag would be huge. So I'm supporting Melbourne. I think it's one of those games where you wish it was a 7-game series, like in the NBA, because I think it's going to be they're both their game styles are so good, and they both teams play them so well. I reckon It's one of those like whoever rocks up on the day kind of thing. I personally don't think it'll be that close of a game. I think one team will take it away, which is not what you want for a granny. So I hope that I'm wrong, but yeah, I think whoever's firing and up and about, and if they can keep Cody Waitman from impacting the scoreboard, then I reckon Melbourne will win it. So fingers crossed for Melbourne.
Yeah. Well, I reckon the best team was out last week in Geelong, so we'll move on from the grand final. Harps?
So you got some crickets in your backyard, but we've got an elephant in the room here that all the footy fans, all the Hawks fans, going to be wanting to hear the coaching situation. So Sam Mitchell is obviously he's your coach now, but you had Clarko for all of last season. How do they compare? How do their styles compare?
Yeah, I think it's funny because Sam played under Clarko, yet like game style beliefs are so contradicting. And like it's just weird. Like, you know, Clarko's your older style, very traditional coach, whereas Sam's more of a younger, sort of figure, like good relationship with the younger boys. And it's sort of very, very similar with their game style. So Clarko's game style is very defensive, and we attack from defence and we impact from defence, and no good or every good offence is off the back of a stable defence sort of mentality. Whereas Sam Mitchell, like if you went down to any Box Hill games, you'd see like he's all about attack. Like his mantra for the season was to kick 20 goals every game, and you know sometimes they kick 19 goals, 10. And we got the win, but he wouldn't be happy because we didn't kick 20 goals. And there was a few times we won, and we didn't kick 20 goals, and he was contemplating whether the boys were allowed to sing the song or not. I'm dead serious. He was like, I don't know, because we won, but we didn't reach what we wanted to do. He's got super high expectations of everyone around him and himself. I think that's going to be a huge driving factor this year. So preseason is going to be a battle, but I reckon it's going to be like one of the biggest learning curves anyone will have to take, and it'll definitely it'll shape us next year. So fingers crossed. But yeah, Sam's a lot younger. I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah, I can hear the differences, but I don't. One thing that's certainly not different is the high expectations of the club. I'm sure both Alistair and Sam absolutely push the boys hard. So that is one definite similarity, isn't it, Harps?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And obviously there was this massive, massive media thing going on. It was so big, as everyone knows, with the Clarkson-Mitchell handover during that kind of maybe 2-month period or so. What was it like internally around them? Was there any chat at all about that, or was it purely like focus on the season, focus on the game ahead?
Conveniently frozen.
It's just turned on airplane mode.
I'm back. Sorry, you there?
Okay.
Yeah, look, it was one thing that like everyone can agree on that was involved in that situation is that it was poorly handled. For such a legend of the club in AFL Clarkson, in Alistair Clarkson, to sort of go out like that was unprecedented and not good. I don't think it was anyone's fault in specific. It was a bit of a hard time for the club. I remember my first year in AFL, and to be training and all of a sudden see all these cameras lining up and then get ushered under the ground all the way to upstairs into a meeting room. It was a pretty weird experience, but no, nonetheless, it was like once we're in the meeting room, we had the chat. We got told Clarko wasn't going to continue the year, and it was like, okay, no worries. Some said congrats to Sam, and some pat Clark on the back, even though he didn't ask for it. And then it was like, okay, then opera review 10 minutes later, and he was addressing the media at 5:00 that night. And everyone, you have your little conversations about it and all, but it was, very much business orientated. Let's get down to it. And I mean, there's no greater coach in today's game in this current era than Alistair Clarkson, and that proved in our last 6 rounds. We've completely flipped the year on its head. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think anybody that's ever had a coach stand down, whether that's at your local under-12s basketball, you have such a great connection with your coach, and it must have been real tough, the fact that you've got so close to somebody over a year, then suddenly it's like they're gone. Yeah,
absolutely. It was absolutely it's your first AFL coach, and I came in and had one of the greatest ever do it. And that the level of excitement never dissipated the whole year. I was so excited to work with him, to hear his point of view. To hear that he was leaving, it was a bit of a gutting thing. I always was rooting for him to sign on in 2022. But yeah, it is what it is. Footy comes footy, but Sam Mitchell's going to be a ripper, so just got to take it day by day, year by year, and I think next year's going to be completely different and really exciting.
Just one more thing on the coaching, not on the handover or anything, but what is it for you that makes Alistair Clarkson just so good, so special as a coach? What's that, or maybe multiple defining factors? Yeah,
I think there's too many, but one thing I've always noticed is his passion. Like midway through the year, he just went, "Nah, boys, our system isn't working," and went, "Let's try this. Let's just do it." And I remember I can't remember. I was telling this story the other day. I can't remember which game it was, but we came in at halftime and we were up. We were winning. We were playing dreadful. I think it was the Adelaide game. So I don't think we were up. We were very, very close. And Barco came into the room and I've never heard anyone yell so loud, to the brink of tears, screaming at the players, just asking for something like a bit of fight. And we did give it to him. I think we were in the lead at one point, but we weren't playing the footy that we were capable of, and that frustrated him. So his level of passion and commitment to the footy club and the people in it, I don't think I'll ever see that in a coach ever again. I just think Alistair Clarkson's a unique character on his own. So, yeah, hard to make comparisons.
Yep, that great answer, mate. Absolutely superb answer. And now, after covering probably one of the biggest stories, I've got to escalate this. This is probably going to be a bigger story heading into 2022. Now, you obviously wear number 38. I know. I'm sure it's a number close to your heart. So, it's often rookies get the higher numbers. Are you looking for a number change, or are you looking to stay in number 38 and forge a career in it? What is it?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, the way our locker room's set up. It's sort of like just think of a rectangle, but then one of the corners is like a elongated tail. So sort of like this. So sort of like that. So there's a rectangle here, and then there's like a few more lockers up here. So you don't want to be. You don't want to be up
if you
here.
want to see Denver's little diagram there.
Yeah, my little diagram. And then so you want to be inside the square, and my locker is right here. So it's right on the corner. So it's passable. Like, you could definitely hold on to it for career lengths. I've never ever worn 38. Oh, sorry, I wore 38 a long time ago. I used to wear 19, but that's Gunners. There's a few numbers, like, if they popped up eventually, like, I wouldn't mind jumping into, but I don't believe in the I don't know what you call it, superstition of wearing the same number in every game you play. So if they can't move me down, then no worries. I'll stick fat and stay with 38 and hopefully turn it into something great.
Yeah, I was just making sure, because I'm sure plenty of our listeners will be slapping number 38s on their Hawks jumpers. So I just wanted to make sure it was a good investment for them. So thank you for answering that.
Okay. That's okay.
Another listener question on Twitter from Danny Prins. What are your aims and goals for 2022, Denver?
Yeah, I love that question. I love it. It's funny, last year just passing. Sorry, that's not at all what happened. This year, and like I spoke about earlier, my goals being to play round one, and are that not happening? You sit down with certain people and they tend to like, oh, it's okay, just sort of tone your goals back a bit, just make them realistic. But if I don't know if you gauge anything what I'm like on this Zoom, I'm like, no thanks, I'll ramp it up a little bit more. So yeah, the same goals of to play round one next year, to be fitter, just more specific goals to achieve that. I think it's sort of what I've focused on. So yeah, getting fitter, getting match fit, improving on my foot skills, like all the little footy things like that, but also developing coping mechanisms off field that they'll all eventuate to me playing better footy, but got to have your mental side on wrap. And it was hard being away from home this year, but find my way through that, develop coping strategies that'll help me play better footy, and then hopefully hold my spot in the team. So, I want to push for round one next year and push to play every game. And they're my goals. Pretty clean cut.
Yeah, great answer. And I'll tell you what, I've got one more question, because we've kept you longer than we meant to. But look, mate, that's not my fault, because you shouldn't give such bloody good answers. So that's you shouldn't keep.
I talk for too long. I know I do. I ramble on.
No, mate, there's
sorry.
not been any rambling here. It's been superb. I'm just worried that I know you have to pick up Chinese. So,
No, you're right.
so the last
Dinner
question.
time.
I've been getting goosebumps after every answer. Seriously.
Sorry.
Yeah, but okay, final question. So, life philosophy, is there any few little words that you live by? I think we might have asked you this last time.
Absolutely. I think I'm gonna ramble on here. No, something that's always been instilled in me is there's one little saying that Mum wants me to put out in the world a lot more, and it's have courage and be kind. It's a really simple phrase. Think about it in any situation, whether it's you picking on someone or someone picking on you. Just stopping, reflecting. Have courage and be kind. There's a reason why someone's acting a certain way. Understanding that will give you better insight. So, yeah, that little phrase right there, have courage and be kind. If everyone can get that tattooed on themselves, on their forearms, so they never forget it, then I reckon the world would be a much better place. So that's my little mantra and something I'm trying to instill in today's world.
It's lovely that you say that, because that's almost precisely what we were talking about at the start of the show. All your courage on the field and then your kindness in person. It reflects absolutely perfectly. And
Exactly right.
Like Lockie said, we did ask the same question in the last episode. We'll be asking it pre-season, post-season, every time we speak to Denver and all the other class of 2020 people throughout this whole series. But I think that just about wraps us up. Your Chinese is probably getting cold. Lockie, have you got anything else?
Oh, just are you ordering plum sauce chicken? Nah, thanks so much for jumping on, Denver. Always a pleasure, mate. And thank you so much for our listeners for tuning in.
No, pleasure's mine, guys. Thank you, everyone. Give it a good listen.
Another class of 2020 come tomorrow, guys, so keep an eye out for it. Thanks again, Denver, and thanks for tuning in.